Want a quick 10-minute wrap-up of the week's compliance news? Well, this is the podcast for you, 10 for 10, where Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, wraps up 10 top compliance stories which occurred over the past week. If you don't know, Tom has a daily news podcast, appropriately called the Daily Compliance News, and 10 for 10 wraps up the week. So get up on a Saturday morning, have a great cup of coffee, and check out 10 for 10, the podcast which gives you the week's top compliance news. Are you interested in upping your game in compliance through the use of AI and machine learning technology? Well, check out my latest book, Upping Your Game, How Compliance and Risk Management Move to 2030 and Beyond. You can check it out in the show notes. I've got a link to the purchase at Amazon.com. Upping Your Game. 10 for 10 for the week ending May 10, 2025. We begin this week's stories with our old friend, 1MDB, as the Wall Street Journal Markets and Finance section reports that disgraced former ex-Goldman partner Tim Leissner is being sought by the country of Malaysia for his role in the 1MDB scandal. Leissner pled guilty and cooperated with the U.S. government, but has not been sentenced yet. And the country of Malaysia submitted an extradition request for Leissner to the U.S. Justice Department. They've also issued a red notice for making him subject to arrest anywhere in the world. Of course, Leissner does not want to go to Malaysia, but it's going to be interesting to see what the U.S. government does with him if they extradite him, or rather send him back to Germany, which has no extradition treaty with Malaysia. Next up from Reuters, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission imposed additional conditions on the Australian financial services license of Macquarie Bank, owned by the Macquarie Group. The bank's shortcomings, some of which remained unnoticed for a decade, pertain to its future dealings in over-the-counter derivatives trading. The regulator's new conditions require the bank to prepare a remediation plan to address these failures and their root causes. Hire an independent expert, i.e. monitor and report on the remediation plan's sufficiency, and have that same independent expert assess the effectiveness of the bank's activities. Next up, pardons. Do you need a pardon? Well, it turns out a lot of people who have been convicted over the past 10 years or so need a pardon. Well, guess who's open for business? The Trump administration. It's not clear how much it will cost you to get that pardon, although several $1 million have been paid to the Republican National Committee or other organizations affiliated with the Republican Party of the president. But it looks like your legal fees will run into seven figures. So you need to find a connected Republican, and you need to be ready to prepare him to pay him a lot of money. Interestingly, the disgraced financier and founder of Binance, CZ, has also applied for a pardon. Can't wait to see what happens with our old friend Sam Bankman-Fried and when he will apply for a pardon. Next up from Reuters, and a really twist on the UnitedHealth continuing story about the assassination of their former CEO. A proposed class action lawsuit has been filed in Manhattan, where shareholders said the insurer defrauded them after the shooting of the chief executive by shifting away from strategies that led to higher than average claim denials without revealing that impact on profitability. I think, as everyone knows, the profits of the bank went down. Well, it turns out that maybe they were doing some dodgy things, and they quit doing that after their CEO was shot and killed on a Manhattan street. So one of the most interesting class actions in quite some time. Finally, next, Politico reports that European Parliament has cracked down on lobbyists' attempt to stop in an effort to stop corruption. The EU Parliament has toughened its rules on lobbying after more than 2 years after a cash for influence scandal that triggered one of the largest corruption investigations in EU Parliament history. Speaking of those seeking pardons, it looks like the Indian financier Gautam Adani is going to seek a pardon from the Trump administration, or perhaps to have the Trump administration drop the case against him based on the criminal charges leveled against him in the overseas bribery probe. The talks, which began earlier this year, apparently have intensified, as reported by Bloomberg, and could lead to a resolution in a month or so. Adani's representatives are trying to make the case that his prosecution does not align with President Trump's priorities, that bribes should be paid, and that the charges against him should be reconsidered. So, if not a pardon, just a dropping of the case. Next up, from Microsoft, Microsoft dropped the law firm that made a deal with the Trump administration from a huge case. The logic that law firms used that it would hurt clients and hurt their business development by fighting Trump really has fallen by the wayside, as the law firms that have fought the executive order, Perkins Coie, for instance, the judges have eviscerated the Trump administration's arguments. Well, now it's hurting on the business side as well, as lawyers from Simpson Thacher informed the Delaware Court of Chancery that they would no longer be representing Microsoft in a case related to the company's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. And Microsoft has hired Jenner & Block to step in to represent them. So caving into the Trump administration certainly did not help this law firm. Next up, from a site we don't think we've ever talked about before, Railway Supply. It reports that the FBI and Amtrak investigators have uncovered a long-term fraud scheme. In conducting an investigation, the scheme lasted from at least 2015 to 2021 and exploited Amtrak's trust in public funding. The defendants under investigation faced 20 years in prison for various counts, including wire fraud. The ongoing case highlights challenges in federal contracting law and how difficult it was, or at least for Amtrak, to assess this, detect it, and then remediate it. Our final story, I'm not sure if this is troubling, but it's something that I think the American government needs to pay attention to, and it comes to us from the South China Morning Post, which reports that China's military likens its anti-corruption drive to preparations for war. And I think a compliance professional would probably be comfortable with the importance of an anti-corruption drive, but it's the preparations for war that concerns me, and I hope our U.S. government's listening. As a campaign to tighten political control of the People's Liberation Army has proved that China's military mouthpiece has an anti-corruption drive going deeper into the PLA's leadership. That looking back on the development of our military, the article said that they've carried out major rectifications before every key war. And that's certainly something that the U.S. government needs to look at very closely. But if you think about what happened to Russia in the Ukraine war, where the corruption of the Russian army, the endemic corruption, denigrated the military services and military efficiencies of the Russian army, you see the Chinese are not only serious about this, but once again, are the Chinese planning for war? Are they planning to attack Taiwan? Are they planning to do something else in the South China Sea? Let's hope the Trump administration is paying attention for once and follows this story closely. Have a great weekend. This is Tom Fox again. 10 for 10 is a special production of the Compliance Podcast Network. I'd also urge you to check out the Daily Compliance News, which posts every week from Monday to Friday, where I give 4 curated stories of bribery, corruption, and compliance events that will allow you to help you start your day as well. So check out the Daily Compliance News and subscribe or rate and review to both 10 for 10 and the Daily Compliance News. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of 10 for 10. I hope you'll check out the newest podcast in the Compliance Podcast Network, the Compliance Tip of the Day. In Compliance Tip of the Day, I give a 5 to 8 minute summary of one tip that you can integrate into your compliance program or put together for greater compliance program efficiency. Finally, if you're a Sherlock Holmes fan, I am preparing a new season of Adventures in Compliance where I go through the 4 novels of Sherlock Holmes. Hear it on the Compliance Podcast Network.